night long a chap remains on sentry go to chase monotony. He exercises of his brains, that is, assuming that he's got any. Though never nurtured in the lap of luxury, yet I admonish you, I am an intellectual chap, and think of things that would astonish you. I often think it's comical, fa-la-la, fa-la-la, how nature always does contrive, fa-la-la-la, that every boy and every gal that's born into the world alive is either a little liberal or else a little conservative. Fa-la-la, fa-la-la, is either a little liberal or else a little conservative. Fa-la-la. When in that house MPs divide, if they've a brain and cerebellum too, they've got to leave that brain outside and vote just as their leaders tell them to. But then the prospect of a lot of dull MPs in close proximity, all thinking for themselves, is what no man can face with equanimity. Then let's rejoice with loud fa-la, fa-la-la, fa-la-la, that nature always does contrive, fa-la-la-la, that every boy and every gal that's born into the world alive is either a little liberal or else a little conservative. Fa-la-la, fa-la-la, is either a little liberal or else a little conservative. Fa-la-la.
Steffen's a member of Parliament, running a bark of all abuses. His unqualified assent somehow normally now refuses. Whigs and Tories dim their glories, giving an ear to all his stories. Harry, every billy they wish, here's a pretty kettle of fish. Kettle of fish, kettle of fish, kettle of fish, kettle of fish. Here's a pretty kettle of fish. Steffen's a member of Parliament, carries every bill he chooses, to his measures all assent. Carry every billy they wish, carry every billy they wish. Here's a pretty kettle of fish.
You seem annoyed.
Annoyed? I should think so. Why, this ridiculous protégé of yours is playing the deuce with everything. Tonight is the second reading of his bill to throw the peerage open to competitive examination.
And he'll carry it too. Carry it? Of course he will. He's a parliamentary Pickford. He carries everything.
Yes. If you please, that's our fault.
The deuce it is.
Yes. We influence the members and compel them to vote just as he wishes them to. It's our system. It shortens the debates.
Well, but think what it all means. I don't so much mind for myself, but with a House of Peers with no grandfathers worth mentioning, the country must go to the dogs.
I suppose it must.
I don't want to say a word against brains. I've a great respect for brains. I often wish I had some myself. But with a House of Peers composed exclusively of people of intellect, what's to become of the House of Commons?
I never thought of that.
This comes of women interfering in politics. So happens that if there is an institution in Great Britain which is not susceptible of any improvement at all, it is the House of Peers.
When Britain really rules the waves in good Queen Bess's time, the House of Peers made no pretence to intellectual eminence or scholarship sublime. Yet Britain won her proudest days in good Queen Bess's glorious days. Yet Britain won her proudest days in good Queen Bess's glorious days.
Yes, Britain won her proudest days in good Queen Bess's glorious days.
When Wellington thrashed Bonaparte, as every child can tell, the House of Peers throughout the war did nothing in particular, and did it very well. Yet Britain set the world ablaze in good King George's glorious days. Yet Britain set the world ablaze in good King George's glorious days.
Yes, Britain set the world ablaze in good King George's glorious days.
And while the House of Peers withholds its legislative hand, and noble statesmen do not itch to interfere with matters which they do not understand, as bright will shine Great Britain's rays as in King George's glorious days. As bright will shine Great Britain's rays as in King George's glorious days.
As bright will shine Great Britain's rays as in King George's glorious days.
Charming persons, are they not? Distinctly. For self-contained dignity combined with airy condescension. Give me a British representative peer.
Then pray stop this protégé of yours before it's too late. Think of the mischief you're doing.
But we can't stop him now. Aren't they lovely? Oh, why did you go and defy us, you great geese? In vain to us you plead, don't go. Your prayers we do not heed, don't go. It's true we sigh, but don't suppose a tearful eye forgiveness shows. Oh no, we're very cross indeed, yes, very cross. Don't go, suppose a tearful eye forgiveness shows? Oh no, we're very cross indeed, yes, very cross. Don't go. Your disrespectful sneers, don't go. Call forth indignant tears, don't go. You break our laws, you are our foe. We cry because we hate you so. You know, you very wicked peers, you wicked peers. Don't go. You break our laws, you are our foe. We cry because we hate you so. You know, you very wicked peers, you wicked peers. Don't go.
Ah, disrespectful seers, call forth indignant tears, if that's the case, my dears.
Don't go.
We'll go.
Oh, shame! Shame upon you! Is this your fidelity to the laws you are bound to obey? Know ye not that it is death to marry a mortal?
Yes, but it's not death to wish to marry a mortal. If it were, you'd have to execute us all.
Oh, this is weakness. Subdue it.
We know it's weakness, but the weakness is so strong. We're not all as tough as you are.
Tough? Do you suppose that I am insensible to the effect of manly beauty? Look at that man. A perfect picture. Who are you, sir?
Private Willis, B Company, 1st Grenadier Guards.
You're a very fine fellow, sir.
I am generally admired.
I can quite understand it. Now, here is a man whose physical attributes are simply godlike. That man has a most extraordinary effect upon me. If I yielded to a natural impulse, I should fall down and worship that man. But I mortify this inclination. I wrestle with it, and it lies beneath my feet. That is how I treat my regard for that man. Oh, foolish fay, think you because his bravery my bosom thaws, I'd disobey our fairy laws, because I fly in realms above, in tendency to fall in love, resemble I the amorous dove, resemble I the amorous dove. Oh, amorous dove, type of Ophidius days, oh, this heart of mine is soft as thine, although I dare not say so.
Oh, amorous dove, type of Ophidius days, oh,
this heart of mine is soft as thine, although I dare not say so. On fire that glows with heat intense, I turn the hose of common sense, and out it goes at small expense. We must maintain our fairy law, that is the main on which to draw, in that we gain a captain sure, in that we gain a captain sure. Captain Short, type of true love kept under, could thy brigade with cold cascade quench my great love, I wonder?
oh, Old Captain Shaw, I want true love gather.
Could my brigade with cold cascade quench my great love?
I can't think why I'm not in better spirits. I'm engaged to 2 noblemen at once. That ought to be enough to make any girl happy. But I'm miserable. Don't suppose it's because I care for Strephon, for I hate him. No girl could care for a man who goes about with a mother considerably younger than himself.
Phyllis, my own.
Don't! How dare you! But perhaps you are one of the noblemen I'm engaged to.
I am one of them.
Oh, but how come you to have a peerage?
It's a prize for being born first.
A kind of derby cup?
Not exactly. I'm of a very old and distinguished family.
And you're proud of your race? Of course you are. You won it. But why are people made peers?
The principle is not easy to explain. I'll give you an example. De Beville was regarded as the Crichton of his age. His tragedies were reckoned much too serious for the stage. His poems held a noble rank, although it's very true that being very proper, they were read by very few. He was a famous painter, too, and shone upon the line, and even Mr. Ruskin came and worshipped at his shrine. But alas, the school he followed was heroically high, the kind of art men rave about, but very seldom buy. And everybody said, how can he be repaid? This very great, this very good, this very gifted man. But nobody could hit upon a practicable plan. He was a great inventor, and discovered, all alone, a plan for making everybody's fortune but his own. For in business an inventor's little better than a fool, and my highly gifted friend was no exception to the rule. His poems, people read 'em in the sixpenny reviews. His pictures, they engraved 'em in the illustrated news. His inventions, they perhaps might have enriched him by degrees, but all his little income went on patent office fees. So everybody said, how can he be repaid? This very great, this very good, this very gifted man. But nobody could hit upon a practicable plan. At last, the point was given up in absolute despair, when a distant cousin died, and he became a millionaire, with a country seat in Parliament, a mole or two of grouse, and a taste for making inconvenient speeches in the House. Then Government conferred on him the highest of rewards. They took him from the Commons, and they put him in the Lords. And who's so fit to sit in it, deny it if you can, as this very great, this very good, this very gifted man? Though I'm more than half afraid that it sometimes may be said that we never should have revelled in that source of proper pride, however great his merits, if his cousin hadn't died. Phyllis, my darling!
Here's the other. Well, have you settled which it's to be?
Not altogether. It's a difficult position. It would be hardly delicate to toss up. On the whole, we would rather leave it to you.
How can it possibly concern me? You are both earls, and you are both rich. And You were both plain.
So we are. At least, I am.
So am I.
No.
I am indeed very plain.
Well, perhaps you are.
There's really nothing to choose between you. If one of you would forgo his title and distribute his estates among his Irish tenantry, why then I should see a reason for accepting the other.
Trelawney, are you prepared to make this sacrifice?
No.
Not even to oblige a lady?
No, not even to oblige a lady.
Then the only question is, which of us shall give way to the other? Perhaps, on the whole, she would be happier with me. I don't know. I may be wrong.
No, I don't know that you are. I really believe she would. But the awkward part of the thing is that if you rob me of the girl of my heart, we must fight, and one of us must die. It's a family tradition that I have sworn to respect. It's a painful position, for I have a very strong regard for you, George.
My dear Thomas.
You are very dear to me, George. We were boys together. At least I was. If I were to survive you, my existence would be hopelessly embittered.
Then, my dear Thomas, you must not do it. I say it again and again. If it will have this effect upon you, you must not do it. No. If one of us is to destroy the other, let it be me.
No.
Yes. By our boyish friendship, I implore you.
Well, be it so. But no, I cannot consent to an act which would crush you with unavailing remorse.
But it would not do so. I should be very sad at first. Who would not be? But it would wear off. I like you very much, but not perhaps as much as you like me.
George, you're a noble fellow, but that tell-tale tear betrays you. No, George, you are very fond of me, and I cannot consent to give you a week's uneasiness on my account.
But, dear Thomas, it would not last a week. Remember, you lead the House of Lords. On your demise, I shall take your place. No, Thomas, it would not last a day.
Oh dear, I'm a very wretched girl to be the cause of so much misery. Why can't people fall in love with people who want to be fallen in love with? There are plenty of them about. I'm sure I don't want either of you. I do hope you're not going to fight about me, because it's really not worthwhile.
Well, I don't believe it is.
Nor I. The sacred ties of friendship are paramount.
Perhaps I may incur your blame. Things are few I would not do in friendship's name.
And I may say I think the same. Not even love should rank above true friendship's name.
Pray be mine, lovely, forget your craze and go your ways in friendship's name. In friendship's name.
Oh, many a man in friendship's name has yielded fortune, rank, and fame, but no one yet in the world so wide has yielded up a promised right, except, oh, friendship, or the saints. Accept this love, unrequited, robs me of my rest. Love, hopeless love, my ardent soul encumbers. Love, nightmare-like, lies heavy on my chest, and weaves itself into my midnight slumbers. When you're lying awake with a dismal headache and repose is tabooed by anxiety, I conceive you may use any language you choose to indulge in without impropriety. For your brain is on fire, the bedclothes conspire of usual slumber to plunder you. First your counterpane goes and uncovers your toes, and your sheet slips demurely from under you. Then the blankety tickles you feel like mixed pickles, so terribly sharp is the pricking. And you're hot and you're cross and you tumble and toss till there's nothing twixt you and the ticking. Then the bedclothes all creep to the ground in a heap, and you pick 'em all up in a tangle. Next your pillow resigns and politely declines to remain at its usual angle, and you get some repose in the form of a doze with hot eyeballs and head ever aching. But your slumbering teems of such horrible dreams that you'd very much better be waking, for you dream you are crossing the channel and tossing about in a steamer from Harwich, which is something between a large bathing machine and a very small second-class carriage, and you're giving a treat, penny ice and cold meat, to a party of friends and relations. They're a ravenous horde, and they all came on board at Sloane Square and South Kensington Station, and bound on that journey you find your attorney, who started that morning from Devon. He's a bit undersized, and you don't feel surprised when he tells you he's only 11. When you're driving like mad with this singular lad by the ship's now a four-wheeler, and you're playing round games and he calls you bad names when you tell him that ties pay the dealer. But this you can't stand, so you throw up your hand and you find you're as cold as an icicle, in your shirt and your socks, the silk with gold clocks, crossing Salisbury Plain on a bicycle. And he and the crew are on bicycles too, which they've somehow or other invested in. And he's telling the tars all the particulars of the company he's interested in. It's a scheme of devices to get at low prices all goods from cough mixtures to cables, which tickled the sailors by treating retailers as though they were all vegetables. You get a good statesman to plant a small tradesman, first take off his boots from a boot tree, and his legs will take root and his fingers will shoot and they'll blossom and bud like a fruit tree. From the green crescent tree you get grapes and green pea, cauliflower, pineapple and cranberries, while the pastry cook plant cherry, brandy and brown apple cuts and 3/4 of banberries. The shares of a penny and ever so many are taken by Rothschild and Mary, and just as a few are allotted to you, you awake with a shudder despairing. You're making a wreck of a crick in your neck, and no wonder you snore, for your head's on the floor and you've needles and pins for your soles, your shins, your flesh is a grief for your left leg's a swim, and you've crumb in your toes, and a fly on your nose, a fluff in your lung, and a feverish tongue, and a fence that is tense in the general sense that you haven't been sleeping in clover. But the darkness has passed, it's daylight at last, and the night has been long, ditto, ditto, my song. And thank goodness they're both alone. I am much distressed to see your lordship in this condition. Oh, my lords, it is seldom that a Lord Chancellor has reason to envy the position of another, but I am free to confess that I would rather be 2 earls engaged to Phyllis than any other half-dozen noblemen upon the face of the globe. Yes, it's an enviable position when you're the only one. Oh, yes, no doubt, most enviable. At the same time, seeing you thus, we naturally say to ourselves, this is very sad. His lordship is constitutionally as blithe as a bird. He trills upon the bench like a thing of song and gladness. His series of judgments in F-sharp minor, given andante in 6/8 time, are among the most remarkable effects ever produced in a court of chancery. He is, perhaps, the only living instance of a judge whose decrees have received the honour of a
double encore. How can we bring ourselves to do that which will deprive the Court of Chancery of one of its most attractive features? I feel the force of your remarks, but I am here in two capacities, and they clash, my lords, they clash. I deeply grieve to say that in declining to entertain my last application to myself, I presumed to address myself in terms which render it impossible for me ever to apply to myself again. It was a most painful scene, my lords, most painful. This is what it is to have two capacities. Let us be thankful that we are persons of no capacity whatever. Come, come, remember, you are a very just and kindly old gentleman. You need have no hesitation in approaching yourself, so that you do so respectfully and with a proper show of deference. Do you really think so? I do. Well, I will nerve myself to another effort, and if that fails, I resign myself to my fate.
If you go in, you're sure to win. Yours will be the charming maid. Be your law, the ancient saw. Faint heart never won fair lady. Never, never, never. Faint heart never won fair lady. Every journey has an end, when at the worst affairs will mend. Dark the dawn, the day is nigh. Hustle your horse and don't say He who shies at such a prize is not worth a mother that he is so kind to bear in mind. Faint heart never won fair lady. Never, never, never. Faint heart never won fair lady. While the sun shines take you away, where the will is there's a way. If a lion in his lair, none but the brave deserve the fair. I'll take heart and make a start, though I fear the prospect shady. Much I'd spend to gain my end. Faint heart never won fair lady. Never, never, never. Faint heart never won fair lady. Nothing venture, nothing win. Blood is sick, but water's thin. In for a penny, in for a pound. It's love that makes the world go round. Nothing venture, nothing win. Blood is thick, but water's thin. In for a penny, in for a pound. It's love that makes the world go round. My bill has now been read a second time. Is ready vote no member now refuses. In verity I wield a power sublime, and one that I can turn to mighty uses. What joy to carry in the very teeth of ministry, cross-pensioned opposition, some rather urgent measures, quite beneath the care of patriot and politician. Fold your flapping wings, soaring legislature. Stoop to little things, stoop to human nature. Never need to roam, members patriotic. Let's begin at home. Rhyme is no exotic. Bitter is your bane, terrible your trials, dingy Drury Lane, surplus 7 dials. Take a tipsy lout gathered from the gutter. Hustle him about, strap him to a shutter. What am I but he, washed at our estating, fed on filigree, clothed and educated? He's a mark of scorn. I might be another if I had been born of a tipsy mother. Take a wretched thief through the city sneaking, pocket handkerchief ever, ever seeking. What is he but I, robbed of all my chances, picking pockets by force of circumstances? I might be as bad, as unlucky rather, if I'd only had thinking for a I suppose one ought to enjoy oneself in Parliament when one leads both parties, as I do. But I'm miserable, poor, broken-hearted fool that I am. Oh, Phyllis, Phyllis.
Yes?
Phyllis. But I suppose I should say, my lady. I have not yet been informed which title your ladyship has pleased to select.
I haven't quite decided. You see, I have no mother to advise me.
No. I have.
Yes, a young mother.
Not very. A couple of centuries or so.
Oh, she wears well.
She does. She's a fairy.
I beg your pardon? A what?
Oh, I've no longer any reason to conceal the fact. She's a fairy.
A fairy? Well, but that would account for a good many things. Then I suppose you're a fairy.
I'm half a fairy.
Which half?
The upper half, down to the waistcoat.
Dear me. There's nothing to show it.
Don't do that.
But why didn't you tell me this before?
I thought that you would take a dislike to me. But, as it's all off, you may as well know the truth. I'm only half a mortal.
I'd rather have half a mortal I do love than half a dozen I don't.
Oh, I think not. Go to your half dozen.
It's only 2, and I hate 'em. Please forgive me.
I don't think I ought to. Besides, all sorts of difficulties would arise. You know, my grandmother looks quite as young as my mother. So do all my aunts.
I quite understand. Whenever I see you kissing a very young lady, I shall know it's an elderly relative.
You will? Then, Phyllis, I think we shall be very happy.
We won't wait long.
No, we might change our minds. We'll get married first.
And change our minds afterwards?
That's the usual course.
None shall part us from each other, one in life and death are we, all in all to one another, I to thee and thou to me, all in all to one another, I to thee and thou to me,
I the tree, thou the flower, I the idol, thou the throng, I the day, thou the hour, I the singer, thou the song. All in all, since that fond meeting, when in joy I woke to find mine the heart within me beating, mine the love that heart enshrined, mine the heart within thee beating, mine the love that heart enshrined.
by the
By the stream,
by
the willow,
I
the sculptor,
I
the clay, I the ocean, I the billow, I the sunrise, the day, I the stream, thou the willow, I the ocean, thou the billow. I the sunrise, thou the
But does your mother know is she aware of our engagement?
She is, and thus she welcomes her daughter-in-law.
She kisses just like other people. But the Lord Chancellor...
I forgot him. Mother, none could resist your fairy eloquence. You will go to him and plead for us?
No, impossible.
But our happiness, our very lives depend upon obtaining his consent.
Oh, madam, you cannot refuse to do this.
You know not what you ask. The Lord Chancellor is my husband.
Your husband?
My husband and your father.
The Lord Chancellor? My father?
Then our course is plain. On his learning that Strephon is his son, all objection to our marriage will be at once removed.
But he knows nothing of this?
No. By our Queen's command, I quitted him shortly after our marriage. He believes me to have died childless, and, dearly as I love him, I am bound, under penalty of death, never to undeceive him.
Then, Phyllis, I really don't see what is to become of us.
Nay, there is hope. I will disguise myself and plead your case as best I may. He comes. This veil will conceal my face. Oh, that I could so easily veil my trembling voice.
Victory! Victory! Success has crowned my efforts, and I may consider myself engaged to Phyllis. First I wouldn't hear of it,
It was out of the question. But I took heart. I pointed out to myself that I was no stranger to myself, that, in point of fact, I had been personally acquainted with myself for some years. This had its effect. I admitted that I had watched my professional advancement with considerable interest, and I handsomely added that I yielded to no one in admiration for my private and professional virtues. This was a great point gained. I then endeavoured to work upon my feelings. Conceive my joy when I distinctly perceived a tear glistening in my own eye. Eventually, after a severe struggle with myself, I reluctantly, most reluctantly, consented.
My lord, a suppliant at your feet I kneel. Oh, listen to a mother's fond appeal. Hear me tonight, I come in urgent need. 'Tis for my son, young Strephon, that I plead. He loves, if in the bygone years thine eyes have ever shed tears, bitter, unavailing tears for one untimely dead. If in the eventide of life sad thoughts of her arise, then let the memory of thy wife plead for my boy. He dies, he fondly laid aside in some old cabinet, memorials of thy long dead bride lie dearly treasured yet. Then let her hallowed bridal dress, her little dainty gloves, her withered flowers, her faded dress plead for my boy. He loves.
It may not be, for so the fates decide. Learn thou that Phyllis is my promised bride.
My bride! No, no.
It shall be so. Those who would separate us, woe betide.
My doom thy lips have spoken, I plead in vain. Art thou already broken, I break again. For him, for her, for thee, I yield my life. Behold, it may not be. I am thy wife.
Iolanthe, thou livest?
I live. Now let me die.
Once again thy vows are broken. thou thyself thy doom hast spoken. Destiny, death thy doom, and thou shalt die.
Hold! If Iolanthe must die, so must we all, for as she has sinned, so have we.
What?
We are all fairy duchesses, marchionesses, countesses, viscountesses, and baronesses.
It's all our fault. They couldn't help themselves. It seems they have helped themselves, and pretty freely too. You have all incurred death, but I can't slaughter the whole company, and yet the law is clear. Every fairy must die who marries a mortal.
Allow me, as an old equity draftsman, to make a suggestion. The subtleties of the legal mind are equal to the emergency. The thing is really quite simple. The insertion of a single word will do it. Let it stand that every fairy shall die who doesn't marry a mortal, and there you are, out of your difficulty at once.
We like your humour. Very well. Private Willis?
Ma'am?
To save my life, it is necessary that I marry at once. How should you like to be a fairy guardsman?
Well, ma'am, I don't think much of the British soldier who wouldn't inconvenience himself to save a female in distress.
You are a brave fellow. You're a fairy from this moment. And you, my lords, how say you? Will you join our ranks?
Well, now that the peers are to be recruited entirely from persons of intelligence, I really don't see what use we are down here. Do you, Talora?
None whatever.
Good. Then away we go to Fairyland.
Soon as we may, off and away, we'll commence our journey. Happy are we, as you can see. Everyone is now a fairy. Everyone is now a fairy. For as a general rule we know, two strings go to every bow. Make up your minds that grief to bring, if you've two bows to every string.
Though as a general rule we know, two strings go to every bow. Make up your minds that give to ring, if you're two bows to every string.
Up in the sky, ever so high, pleasures come in endless series. We will arrange happy exchange, house of peers for house of peeries. Peeries, 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 house of peers for house of peeries. Up
Up in the air, sky high, free from wars in Chancery. He will be surely happier, for he's such a susceptible Chancellor. Up in the air, sky high, free from wars in Chancery. He will be surely happier, for he's such a susceptible Chancellor.
Soon as we may, off and away, we'll commence our journey. Happy are we, as you can see. Everyone is now a fairy. Everyone is now a fairy. For as a general rule we know, 2 strings go to every bow. Make up your minds that grief will bring, if you've 2 bows to every string.
Though as a general rule we know, 2 strings go to every bow. Make up your minds that grief will bring, if you've 2 bows to every string. Up in the sky, ever so high, pleasures come in endless series. We will arrange happy exchange, house of peers for house of peries. Peries, 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 house of peers for house of peries. Up in the air, sky high, free from wars in Chancery. He will be surely happier, for he's such a susceptible Chancellor. Up in the air, sky high, free from wars in Chancery. He will be surely happier, for he's such a susceptible Chancellor.